Welcome to Locally Sourced. I'm Armanda Famiglietti. Tonight my guests are local candidates in the town of Kent and Putnam Valley. So let's find out why they're running for office, who they are, and why you should vote for them. Welcome, Terry Raskyn.
Hello.
And Ann Campbell.
Hello.
So great to have you two here. So Ann, I'm going to start with you. Why are you running for Kent Town Board, and what are your qualifications?
First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm very new at this. I've been a volunteer in my community through my whole adult life. And in the last few years, I've also worked in faculty governance in my job at SUNY New Paltz. And working in governance had made me realize that I'd like to be involved at a broader level in government because by working together collectively, we can often accomplish more than an individual can accomplish.
So tell me a little bit more about your job at SUNY New Paltz. I assume you're a professor?
Yes, I'm an associate professor in the Department of Communication Disorders, and I teach basic sciences to students who are planning to become speech-language pathologists and audiologists.
What do you have your degrees in?
My degree is actually in speech and hearing sciences. I started my career as a technician and an engineer in IBM, but that changed in the 90s, and I spent a year as a clinical audiologist, and then I took my current position.
Okay. And you said you were very active in your community, so can you be more specific? I know that you have a keen interest in climate change and the environment. Can you talk more about that?
Certainly. Actually, my first volunteer experience is up here in New York State when we moved here in '79, involved Putnam Recreation Program for the Handicapped at Green Chimneys. I was also involved in the Putnam Horse Council, in various 4-H clubs as my kids were growing up, volunteered at the schools, and the last 4 or 5 years I've been a ride leader for the mid-Hudson Bicycle Club. But also I got involved with the Conservation Committee in the town of Kent about 10 years ago, so I've been active on that committee ever since.
You say 4-H, and I just wanted to mention that two of our crew members today are with the 4-H Media Club. Which,
oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so Camera 3 and Camera 1. We've got 2 volunteers, and that's a great organization, the 4-H Media Club. They do a lot of work here at Comcast Public Access Channel 21, so I want to thank them right now.
Good for them.
Before, if I don't get a chance later. So I went to your website and your Facebook page, and I noticed that you like to say that the machine behind your campaign, and there is a machine, is a bicycle. So let me ask you, why do you campaign on bicycle, and what's that like?
Well, actually, for Lake Carmel, which I'm spending a lot of time in right now, I have mostly been going on foot, driving to a street and then walking and door knocking, getting to meet my neighbors. But for the western part of Kent, the bicycle is ideal because backing my car in and out of multiple driveways onto busy roads is not the safest thing to do. I did have to get over the idea that I'd be coming to people's doors in colorful spandex and wearing a helmet and a funny bug-eyed mirror, but I've gotten good responses from the people I've met. And one of the things I love about cycling is it's an opportunity to get a much more in-depth view of the community while traveling on a bike compared to a car. And similarly, while campaigning, I'm trying to get an in-depth view not only of my physical surroundings, streets in Kent that I've never been on before, but also really getting to know my neighbors. And so I'm finding that it's kind of a nice metaphor for what this campaign is all about for me.
And Kent can get very hilly, like around Fonstock Park and all. You manage those hills pretty well?
Well, I did at one point, after climbing a very steep hill, come to somebody and say, actually, I think I deserve your vote because I just climbed your driveway.
Oh. Are they going to give it to you?
Not sure. I'm hoping.
Okay. So if elected to the Kent Town Board, what are the 3 or 4 top priorities that you'd like to see in?
Well, I think an important priority for Kent, and one of the big challenges we face, is economic development that is of the appropriate scope and scale and character, consistent with the quality of life and the natural beauty that we have and enjoy. So that's one of my priorities. As part of that, I am very interested in seeing the Climate Smart initiative go through, and I've been working with the Conservation Committee and with Chris Ruthven from the town board to try to bring that resolution to the town board. In fact, it should be on the agenda for next week, which I'm very excited about. I'm also concerned about the condition of the lakes in Kent. You know that there have been problems with cyanobacteria, the toxic algae blooms. There's a lot of research going on about those. It's not 100% clear what causes those, but clearly phosphorus pollution in the watershed is an issue, and obviously I'd be interested in supporting anything that's going to help address those problems. Also, through my work at the college, I've become very aware of some of the concerns and needs of young people today, and they're significant. And if there's anything I could do on the board to help with improved programming or more programming, we have a wonderful recreation department in Kent, but there might be more that we could do for teens who are not necessarily interested in athletics, for example.
I see. So what would be the ideal balance, considering your interest in conservation with development? You mentioned both of those, and I don't know if Kent has a downtown. Does Kent have a downtown?
Not in the traditional sense. And
or a business district?
We do have the Route 52 corridor, which is our main business district. It would be wonderful if we could get state in there to pave Route 52, which it desperately needs, and that's something the town has been pushing for. The Route 52 corridor does have a sewer district that was put in a number of years ago, so that would help to promote commercial development in that region. We also do have portions of the I-84 corridor where we have, an industrial commercial zoned land. So there are possibilities there.
Wasn't there a development proposed in Kent, Crossroads or Crosswinds or Crossed Wires or something? Is that something in Kent?
That ended up more in Patterson, and right
see.
now that seems to be in limbo. But there is another project in the works in Kent right now that has a lot of residents very concerned.
And what is that?
It's a combination of multiple hotels and a truck stop that's being proposed. Would have its access on Route 52, just north of where the elementary schools are.
Okay, I can visualize that. So, why is that of concern? It sounds like it's a step in the direction of development and having more funds coming into Kent.
So on the surface, a lot of residents at first were excited about the idea of having hotels. I think that's something a lot of people can line up behind.
More than one hotel?
This was actually for 2 hotels.
Wow.
Yes. But there are significant environmental impacts with this proposal that have some residents highly concerned. It does involve mining down to a depth of 140 to 180 feet, and there would be significant increases in traffic. Concerns about air quality, environmental issues, and so forth. So there is a group of residents that's actually actively in opposition to this proposal right now, and they've been having regular meetings, and they've been speaking at town board meetings. One of the things that's great in Kent is the supervisor does allow public comment on any topic at any meeting. It's not required that it be a public hearing, and so people have been coming out, and they've been very vocal.
That's terrific. So I'm trying to think now. Route 84 is near there, right? So would there be an on-off from 84 for the truck stop, or?
It doesn't appear as of right now that that's in the proposal.
Would that be something you would go for? Because that would alleviate traffic on 52.
Right, that would be up to the developer to try to make that occur. And so this is still in the very early stages. I think there's a lot more information that's going to be coming out in the future. And the planning board is the lead agency, so they've prepared a very detailed scoping document to which the developer must answer. And so we are waiting for that environmental impact statement to come back from the developer. But that may take some time.
Okay. So one of the questions I ask all my guest candidates is about taxes. So tell me what your take is on the Kent Town taxes and what you would do differently if you were on the board.
Now, our supervisor, Maureen Fleming, has done an excellent job keeping town taxes flat in recent years. The challenge is that the school taxes continue to rise, and as you're probably aware, even though enrollments in the schools are declining, the cost per pupil has risen, and school taxes are continuing to rise. So that is a concern. And you probably also know that the history of Kent as a watershed community has been greatly affected by its environmental conditions, and so there isn't a lot of room for commercial development. And residential development ends up costing more in services than it provides in a tax base. So we have a huge problem. I don't know that there are easy solutions. I think probably every candidate who runs for town board says we're going to have an easy solution, but in reality, it's a difficult challenge. So I think the Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Development Agency are obviously working to bring in appropriate development to help with the tax base. And our supervisor, again, is working very hard to keep the taxes flat. The result of that, though, is that the Kent Public Library is now seeking additional funding, about $6 for the average household per year, because with rising inflation costs, it's been difficult for them to maintain their services at the level that they formerly have. And so I do encourage all town residents to flip the ballot on Election Day and vote on the library referendum.
Okay, so you're saying that the paper ballot has more information on the back and that they should turn it over?
Yes. Right, so all of the
I'm just
candidates
sort of
are on one side,
that for people
but the
who might
referendum
say,
is on the back.
Flip the ballot. What does that mean? I should stop voting for the party I usually do and flip to the other party? I don't know. That
Physically
okay.
turn it over.
Because
and
libraries
please vote to support the library.
Libraries are very important, and the benefit of a library to the community. I know I've read some statistics, but for every dollar that taxpayers spend, they actually get something like $5, $6, $7 in return in value in what libraries provide. And I have to say, Kent was my first show in the studio. I did a Love Your Library series. And Kent was my first show, and I have to say thank you to the Kent people because, you know, it was my first show and it didn't go that well, but I was so impressed with Kent Library. And I, even though I live in Carmel, I've gone to Kent for drawing classes and I've gone for history information. I just think, I mean, I can't say enough good things about Kent Library. So if I lived in Kent, I'd definitely flip the ballot and I'd circle for, yes, I want that increase. It's a very small amount of money. So let's talk a little about, you've been talking about how interested you are in conservation. Is Kent a climate smart town?
Not yet. So, as I said, the first step
1 minute
in joining the DEC program, the Climate Smart program, is to pass a resolution, and that's on the agenda for the town board next week. Once that goes through, we need to form a task force. This program will help us obtain funding so that we can reduce energy costs in the town and improve our resilience against weather-related, climate-related weather events.
Okay, well, I hope that passes too. And in the 30 seconds, do you think you can tell the voters in Kent why they should vote for you?
I plan to work very hard for the town. I love this community, and I can think of no greater honor than to have the opportunity to represent you and work towards the advancement of the town of Kent. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Terry. I just want to take this opportunity to mention, speaking of voting, is that we have in New York State early voting, and it's going to start on October 26th, which is a Saturday. So there's absolutely no reason why people don't go out and vote in this election. From October 26th to November 3rd, you just have to go to the Putnam Board of Elections, which is right here on Old Route 6. You have lots of time to do it. 9 to, I think they even have some evenings available for early voting. There's no reason you can't vote in this election, no excuse, no need for an absentee ballot. And also, of course, if for some reason, you're on vacation during that time, make sure you vote on November 5th. We also want to let people know that each of these candidates are only getting 15 minutes to talk. So if you want to hear more from them and ask your questions, that they're going to be appearing at 2 Meet the Candidates forums that are coming up very soon. We have a graphic for that, and there it is. Monday, October 21st, the Lake Peekskill Civic Association is sponsoring a Meet the Candidates at the Peekskill Community Center. And on Tuesday, October 22nd at 6:30 p.m., the League of Women Voters of Putnam County is sponsoring Meet the Candidates at Putnam Valley Middle School Cafeteria. So again, if you want to know more about these candidates and other candidates that are running, please go to those Meet the Candidates meetings.
Well, it's great that the League and the Lake Peekskill Association is doing this in Putnam Valley. Unfortunately, those do not cover the other towns. So do you have any Meet the Candidates events?
Yes, we have one this coming Sunday, the 20th, at the Sedgwood Club at 3 p.m.
great.
Terrific. Thanks for mentioning that. Thanks for bringing that up, Terry Raskyn, who is my next guest. Terry, thanks very much. So, Terry, you're running for Putnam Valley Town Justice.
Yes.
And I'm not sure I know what a town justice does. And so could you tell us what you would do and what are your qualifications for that job?
Well, the town justice courts are the first courts that many people will ever encounter, and hopefully the only, or they will never encounter. The justice courts handle more minor crimes, I shouldn't say very minor crimes, but certain levels of misdemeanors and very low-level felonies. We are also, as town justices, I will be on call, if elected, for arraignments, off-hour arraignments on more serious felonies that would normally be heard in the Supreme Court or county court. We also have jurisdiction over a lot of vehicle and traffic law infractions, and frankly, that's the bread and butter for town justice courts all throughout the state. And for our towns, for Annstown, that means parts of 84. For Putnam Valley, it's anyone who incurs an infraction on the Taconic State Parkway.
Ooh.
Yes, so that can get interesting. There are also landlord-tenant cases, small claims cases, and that is what the town justice handles.
So when you're in court, do you just see a variety of cases come up on the docket? So it might be a traffic infraction, it might be a landlord dispute.
Right. Usually
following the other?
You know, I have been in almost every town justice court in the region, as I happen to be one of the wonderful mediators for a wonderful Lower Hudson Valley organization that provides mediators for the town courts. And I've watched some of the best handling of these cases and other cases that's possible. And that's something that I hope to bring, what we do use in the Putnam Valley Town Courts. Right now, Justice Louis DiCarlo, whose seat I'm running for, I'm not running against him, he is stepping down. And Gina Capone, who is running now for State Supreme, both of them do use mediation services, but this reduces backlogs in the courts and also cuts expenses, because mediators, like me, come in, talk to the opponents ahead of time if they agree to try mediation. There's no penalty if it doesn't work. And what we do is try to facilitate a solution that both parties come up with themselves. And I have seen cases that I would bet my bottom dollar would never resolve in mediation, and they do. It works amazingly. And that is before they actually go to the trial. Yes,
so it sort of reduces the docket tremendously.
Absolutely.
And maybe the costs as well.
Absolutely costs. And this is mediation, and what's called presumptive mediation is being rolled out in all the courts in New York, Supreme Court as well, especially in trusts and estates and wills. That's the surrogates court. I just about to take more training in some of the advanced mediation, because that's something I will be able to continue, not in Putnam Valley, but in court systems throughout the region.
Now, I know that the court is public, right? If I want to come and see the town justice in action, and all the misdemeanors and little felonies that happen in my my district, I can do that.
Your
what about mediation?
Anywhere else? No.
Do
mediation.
I sit in on mediation?
No, you do not sit in on mediation. It's generally the parties, any people who are directly associated with the dispute. And on occasion, if there are lawyers involved in the case, the lawyers can sit in as well. The lawyers are not encouraged to take part in the mediation, but are there for their clients. There may be some complex tax issues, for example, that will affect a mediation, and they're there to advise a client.
All right. So you obviously know everything about what you're talking about, so that's very comforting.
Actually, there are things I don't know, but I know what I don't know, and I know who to call.
Right. You know how to get that information. So I went to your website, which I would encourage people to do. It's very informative. And you mentioned that you were pledging to establish a Putnam Valley Youth Court. So what is that, and why is it important?
I think that it's important to get our kids involved in understanding the legal system, in understanding how to right wrongs. I would like to see not just a youth court where, if with the cooperation of the schools, minor infractions in the hallways of the schools could be dealt with on a peer basis, and therefore that would prevent things from spiraling out of control and having to end up in actual court or justice courts. Also, moot court is a terrific tool that is used all over, in schools all over, and it fascinates everybody who's involved, both the volunteer lawyers who serve as judges and the kids who prepare cases and argue their cases. Sometimes this also inspires people to become lawyers after they graduate.
Is that a good thing?
I think it's a great thing.
Sorry, being facetious.
Although I have to say that it's something you really have to want to do, especially with the cost of law school these days. It's tough.
One of my biggest regrets is I didn't go to law school. Now, not that I wanted to practice, I just wanted to know the law, because the law affects so much in your adult life.
And that's what I did. I was a working journalist and covering legal cases, and decided I wanted to specialize in legal coverage. So as into my 20s, not directly out of college, I did go to law school. I was crazy. I worked full-time. I was at Good Morning America at that time, and I went to law school full-time and still made law review and cum laude, graduated cum laude, and didn't sleep the entire first year of law school.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I want to ask you what drugs you used.
No, actually not. I used 10-minute cat naps
that worked?
in the library. Yeah, that.
Well, I can tell you're
worked.
a very capable person, Terry. So I'll take that
that
remark back. But
actually, it's a drive that I have that I've always used. And I continue to have to these days. I'm used to all hours, working all hours, and always have.
So the youth court, you would, I assume, recruit kids from the local high school, or
yes, high school, even middle school. I don't see why not middle. Elementary school might be a little different, but I can't see why we can't start these things in middle school.
So what you're saying is there is none right now?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. And other specialty courts you said you were going to pledge to work with. Tell me what a specialty court is and what their value is.
They are incredibly valuable. That's drug court, mental health court, veterans court. I've seen in, not just up here in Putnam, where opioids are a terrible problem, as they are everywhere, but I've seen this work in the city as well, in the Bronx, with defendants who are handled in the drug court system with programs, with being able to restore their lives, if someone successfully goes through a drug court, the recidivism rate drops quite a bit.
So let me interrupt you, because I know the Judge Reeds, who we're very sorry to have lost this year, he had a drug court. Was that specific to the town of Carmel?
No, that was specific to the county.
Okay.
And that was because he was a county judge. So he handled cases from all over the county. But we start handling drug cases in the Putnam, in the town courts as well.
Okay.
That is lower level offenses. But there's no reason that we can't work with the drug courts and programs, all kinds of drug programs that we do have here in the county, and they are quite good.
So in other words, it would be in addition to what the county court provides as far as the drug court?
In addition, or in cooperation with.
Yeah. Okay. So you also pledged, and this is an interesting pledge, that you want to provide equal access to justice and justice for all in the Putnam Valley Court, which makes me think that's not happening now. Can you explain that pledge?
There is excellent justice in the Putnam Valley Town Court right now, and I hope to continue the tradition of the two wonderful town justices that we have. But right now there are only morning sessions in the Putnam Valley Town Courts, as opposed to everywhere else in the county and throughout the state. They're late afternoon or evenings, and we have people who cannot afford to take a day off, laborers or part-time employees whose jobs will be in jeopardy if they have to take an entire day off to attend court. We want to make things as flexible as possible.
I see. Okay. So that would mean, I assume that it's not just you that would be on the job. It would be bailiffs and clerks and mediators and lawyers who would be on the job. Is that something that they want as well? Do they want to be,
to be honest, this is something that every other town court that I've been to in 4 counties in the Hudson Valley, they all have. I mean, most of the mediation I do starts at 4 o'clock and extends into 6, 7 o'clock.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
But why not Putnam Valley? Why?
I can't answer that, to be honest.
Really?
I don't know.
I'm surprised. I'm
do not
surprised you
know.
never called them up and said, "Excuse me, but I have a question."
Yeah.
Okay, well, that sounds like a very important thing to do.
It's reasonable, and I think it can be done without adding to costs as well. We can do it within current budgets.
Okay, I guess that was my question.
Yes.
That might be the push. That hey, it's going to cost more. Would you prefer for them to stop having the morning and focus more on
not
the
at
evening?
all. I think that what we used to have in Putnam Valley, from what I understand, we used to have at least one night or 2 nights a month, and that's accomplished just by shifting people's hours. So
Okay.
I don't see why it can't be done.
All righty. I don't know much about. If I didn't go to law school, so I don't know much about the courts. But are court cases scheduled according to the people who are on trial schedule, or to someone else? I mean,
What
schedule?
happens is, let's say, for example, let's say someone files a small claims suit or landlord-tenant.
There's a
It's
defendant.
There's a defendant. There's a plaintiff.
Plaintiff. Okay.
And that gets scheduled by the court clerk when there is availability. It's usually as soon as possible. Depends on the court docket and the availability. And then generally these things are heard, and the decision may be that same date or maybe a later date. And it all depends on the scheduling and how crowded the dockets are.
Okay. All righty. Thanks for
See,
clearing that
my
up.
goal would be to, again, to handle so much by mediation that this frees up the court time.
Oh,
That
right.
would be just,
I'm
that's
glad
the
you
dream.
went back to that point. We only have about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Can you just look in the camera and tell the voters in Putnam Valley why they should vote for you for town justice?
I have lived in Putnam Valley nearly 3 decades, even when I was suffering huge commutes into the city. I believe in Putnam Valley, and I love the law. This is something that I want to make as approachable. I want to make the courts, as they are, as approachable to people and as a solution for people, and just to have everybody be satisfied with the quality of justice that's being served.
Thank you very much, Terry Raskyn.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show. Thank you so much, Ann Campbell. Good
you.
luck for the Kent Town Board. And of course, I want to just thank our wonderful volunteers from the 4-H Club, Media Club. Check that out. It's great. And also all the other volunteers that come, and for the viewers who watch. And I just, of course, want to say, get out and vote.